Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
It's good to see all the smiling faces in the place. My name is Pastor Charles Thomas. I pastor a small church in Euston, California called Rock of Faith Community Outreach Church. It's funny because they used to call us the black church, and when people start coming to the church, I was the only black person in there in my family. So we're not called a black church anymore. We're just called Rock of Faith. I was so honored to be asked to speak today. Whenever someone asks me to speak, it's an honor, not a privilege. Because if they ask you to speak, they want to hear what you're saying. So you need to make sure what you're saying is going to be uplifting and it's going to help someone. So I began to pray before I put something together. I know I only have 10 minutes. I'm going to do my best. I'm a preacher. I'm going to do my best. And I asked the Lord, what am I going to speak about today that's going to help someone? Well, the Lord said we need to break down the divide between black history and white history. So I says, well, you need to lead me in that direction so I can put this thing together. Now, most of the time when you hear names like Harriet Tubman, it rings a bell to you, Underground Railroad. Frederick Douglass, great orator. Carter Goodwin Woodson, black history pioneer. Denmark Vesey, he helped free slaves. Sojourner Truth, she was an anti-slavery activist. Marcus Garvey preached and taught about going back to Africa. These names, you know these names because they're great people in history. People like Elijah Muhammad, the Nation of Islam. Homer Plessy, a legal figure. W.E.B. Du Bois. And Medgar Evers, who was murdered in the civil rights movements. These names, you know exactly who these people are and what they've done. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Coretta Scott King, Rosa Parks, Emmett Till, Malcolm X, Huey Newton, Booker T. Washington, Eldridge Cleaver, Thurgood Marshall. You know these names because these are the names in which you were taught was correlating with black history. Well, as I told my brother today, I said I'm going to put a little twist on this thing called black history. And I'm going to call it American history. And the reason I'm going to do that is because sometimes we're not given all the information. We're only given bits and pieces. And we run with that bits and pieces and we think that's it in its totality. So I won't be before you long, but I am going to enlighten you on a little bit of history. If I say George Fox, most people are going to look at me and like, who is this guy? Well, in 1650, he organized what they call the Quakers. The Quakers was a religious organization. So if you say George Fox, you have to say Harriet Tubman. And the reason why, because if it had not been for George Fox, which, by the way, was a white man, Harriet Tubman could not have been able to move in the Underground Railroad. These were God-fearing, believing men and women, the Quakers. They weren't based on basic religion. It was more of a feeling for people and having a sympathetic heart. And this is why these people were helping the freed slaves get to the north. The Quakers played a major role in organizing and running what we know today as the Underground Railroad, a system of secret routes and safe houses that helped runaway slaves. They helped them to get to the northern states and even as far as Canada. If I say Levi Coffin, you guys will probably look at me like I got 3 heads. Very important man. Him and his wife, Catherine, hid slaves in their Indiana home for over 21 years. This couple was white. On May 4th, 1961, a group of 13 people, 7 blacks and 6 whites, they were civil rights activists, and they launched what we know today as the Freedom Riders. It was a series of bus trips through the American South to protest segregation and interstate bus terminals. And one of those people that was very important in this call was James Zwerry. Some of you may not even know him. I'm going to give you a little background on this man. As he was riding the bus, he was on his way to Montgomery, Alabama. A mob was already waiting for James by the time the Greyhound bus eased into the station in Montgomery, Alabama. Looking out the window, James could see men gripping baseball bats and chains and clubs. They had sealed off the streets leading to the bus station and chased away news photographers. They didn't want anyone to witness what they were about to do. Did I mention that James was a white man? James accepted his worst fear. He was going to die today in his mind. But only the night before, James had prayed for the strength not to strike back in anger. He was among some people that had the same beliefs in him from Nashville that decided to take a bus ride through the segregated South. They called themselves the Freedom Riders. Their goal was to desegregate public transportation. James had not planned to go, but the night before, some of the students in the college asked him to join. To summon his courage, James stayed up late. He was a God-fearing man, and he read Psalms 27. As he was reading it, he said, "The Lord is my shepherd and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" But there was another passage at the end that touched James in a place the other students didn't know about. "Though my mother and my father forsake me, the Lord will receive me." James' parents had forsaken him for joining the civil rights movement. That same night, he had written a letter that was to be handed to them in case he was killed. It explained his decision to join the Freedom Riders. James called his mother to tell her what they were doing and where they was going, and she said, "No, please don't go. You're going to kill your father." He says, I have no choice. I have to go. So now the Greyhound bus doors hissed open. James had volunteered to go first. The mob swarmed him as he stepped off the bus, yelling explicits. And I quote, "Nigger lover, nigger lover." Then as the mob grabbed James close, he closed his eyes and he bowed his head down. "The Lord is my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" What happened next would furnish the civil rights movement with one of the most unforgettable images, as the photographers took a picture of James bloody and battered. And right after the picture was taken, he passed out and lost conscious. stayed in the hospital for several days, almost lost his life. And why did James do it? He did it because he loved people. It didn't matter the color of their skin or where they came from. And I told you I wouldn't be here long because I got a quick message here. If our nation is going to heal, it's going to be healed by love, not by knowledge. If our nation is going to heal, it's going to heal by love, not finances. We need to learn how to love one another. We need to learn how to get our facts right. We need to look at our men in blue that protect our neighborhoods. We need to honor them and understand the job that they have that's set forth in it. I tell you, I couldn't be a police officer. I don't have the guts to do it. I'm so grateful to the men in blue that I can sleep at night and feel safe. So my message today is we need to pull down the racial divide. We need to stop looking at people for the color of their skin or what country they come from. We need to love people for who they are. I tell my church we need to find out who we are. We need to gain relationships with people. You know, when I fill out applications for different things, it has the ethnic background. It says black, white, or Hispanic, and then it's got a box that says other. I always check the other, because even I don't know who I am. I know that I was born in these United States of America in a state called Virginia. That much I do know. I don't need to trace my roots back to Zimbabwe or Kenya. I don't need to do that because I'm here in the now, right now. And if there's any message I can give to anyone here today, is start loving each other for who they are, not from where they came from. Thank you so much.